Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video, we're going to cover probably the biggest news, in my opinion, that came out of Mining Disrupt, and this is regarding, looks like we have a new king of Scrypt ASICs, and we're going to talk about the Alphapex DG2 and its efficiency. We'll look at the specs that we do know, as well as one other big news point, and it's coming from those icy boys, coming from IceRiver. We'll talk about that here towards the end. It's just a quick little update, but it is pretty significant, okay? So we'll talk about it, we'll give our thoughts, we'll compare it to the others to see how this new guy stacks up, and it's pretty impressive, okay? So if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get right to this thing. Man, voice is going out already. All right, so first, huge shout out to Greater Good, Hobbyist, Serpent X Tech, Tech Hustler, all those guys providing us with a lot of great coverage from Mining Disrupt. Make sure you are following them, especially on X or Twitter, which is one of the quickest, fastest ways to get any information out. So this is where we're getting our info from. Shout out to Greater Good. This is who we have highlighted right now. We'll start off with the DG2. Okay, so what they did kind of leak, they didn't give us the full specs, but the biggest thing was the efficiency. And realistically, that's what I was most concerned with. Not necessarily concerned with, but more interested in, right? Because at that point, for me, efficiency is longevity. Anything I'm looking at right now, it's looking at for mining beyond this cycle, right? And at this point, especially with how competitive things are and how competitive Scrypt is going to get, obviously the hash rate and difficulty is only going to increase on an even bigger scale as these manufacturers continue to make these Scrypt ASICs. You want to be as efficient as possible, especially if you're a pleb miner, right? So let's look at the specs. So what they did kind of leak was that it was going to be 0.19 joules to mega hash efficiency, right? So that was going to be the big drawback. On the little Alphapex machine, they put 0.1x, but on some of the graphics, they did put 0.19. So they did break that barrier. That's the key highlight. Not sure if the specs are fully finalized yet, but from what we can see here on the screen, we can see that this miner had been up for about 56 minutes. Pull rejection rate about 0.30. The real-time hash rate at 18.5 gigahash. The average was 17.7, so we can kind of meet it in the middle. We can call it 18. Okay, so is it potentially because it was in a bad climate, bad area, bad pool? Could it be potentially a little bit higher? Sure. We're going to ballpark it with these numbers. Okay, so as we look at it, let's put it in a profit calculator so we can see what we're dealing with. So if we're going by those metrics, which again, they can change, right? We're just kind of guesstimating just based off of the info sheet they gave us. Again, make sure you are subscribed to these guys. I believe Greater Good does have an interview with Payne from Alphapex, so probably going to give a lot more good info, so watch out for those videos, guys. All right, so 18 gigahash, 3,500 watts. The reason we're saying 3,500 watts is, again, that's going to bring us to that 0.19 joules to mega hash. So essentially what you're doing to kind of figure that out, you're just dividing joules. Think of the joules as in watts, right? So 3,500. We're going to divide it by, in this case, most places have it by the mega hash. So it'd be 18,000 mega hash, which is 18 gigahash, right? So that 0.194, right? So again, it can swing up, can swing down a little bit. This guy can also be greater. I believe Hobbyist was saying that it was something like 20, so it can be 20 to 22 gigahash. So obviously you're going to play with those numbers there, right? But based off of the information that was on the screen, we'll go based off of that. So that's what gives us our numbers here. So 18 gigahash, 3,500 watts. When we plug it in at a 10-cent kilowatt hour, 1832 is your revenue. Take out your electric, $8.40, bring you a profit of $9.73. Okay. And this is kind of bringing us in line with the original DG1. Keep in mind, there was a DG1 Plus that came out not too long after. Potential for that here also. Potential for these specs to either go up or down, right? It didn't seem like they were fully committed yet. So it doesn't seem like this thing is releasing now. So realistically, if it was releasing now, I think they would have more info on it. Expect us sometime maybe late summer or end of year, right? So somewhere around that time frame. We'll see. Maybe we'll find out in the next few days here, as these guys, again, did interview them. So hopefully they will have more information there. So again, stay tuned to their videos. But let's compare it now to the competition, right? Which realistically, the main competitors are the Volkminer D1, which is coming in at 18.5 gigahash, 4,250 watts, right? So when we look at it from that lens, that efficiency does make a bit more of a difference, right? So at that point, Comparing it with the Volk miner, it's about a 17% difference in efficiency. So 17% gain with the Alphapex over this guy, which is pretty impressive, okay? But overall, fairly similar numbers. Are very high on the wattage on this guy, though I'm not a fan of that. But let's compare it to the real competitor here, and that's the L9. And this is where it is impressive, and the fact that it's beating the L9, right? It's beating it in terms of overall hash rate and efficiency, right? Which is a pretty big deal. So the L9 coming in at, this is for the 17 gigahash model, obviously 17 gigahash, 0.21 joules to megahash. So here the difference isn't as big. It's about a 10% increase in efficiency. So is it beating it? Yes. Is it a game changer where it's like, oh man, it's revolutionary? Not necessarily, right? 10% isn't that big of a deal, especially considering fluctuations. Although typically, especially recently, bitmain has been kind of undercutting a little bit, right? They've been stating X amount of wattage, but realistically, add another 100 or 200 watts, right? Obviously, depending on the climate, depending on the situation, depending on silicon lottery, but factor that in. So that's why a 10% difference isn't the biggest deal in the world, right? But it's definitely something we do want to see, especially if it comes in competitive with the prices. And this is kind of where it's difficult, because if it's not going to come out until farther down the road, it's really hard to say where a price point would be, which is probably why they're not going to commit to a price yet. I would honestly be a little bit surprised if they would, just because, again, the L9 is currently down quite a bit. Let's look on NHash real quick. It is down to around in the $8,000 range, right? And a lot of it has to do with the current price action. So realistically, right now is not a too bad of a time to buy because of that. Right, so currently it actually just went up. This was at 8K like a day or two ago. It's up to 8,500, right? Just because, again, the market's going to be jumpy. As soon as there's any spikes, we know that it goes up instantly, but takes forever to go back down, right? So this is going to be the tricky part, is that does it make sense to wait for this D2? Not really, right? Unless they come in with some crazy price that it's like $4,000 or something, which I highly doubt is going to happen. Just because it's very likely that the market is going to pump sometime between now and most likely the time this thing releases, right? So although this price is $8,500 now and fair market value would be in this range, even here in a couple of weeks as potential, or sometime by the end of summer or sometime Q3, Q4, this thing won't be $8,000 anymore, right? It'll be 10,000, 12,000, potentially, if the prices go where we're thinking they are going to go, which again, none of this stuff is guaranteed, but that's kind of what we base our thesis off of, right? So that's where it gets tricky. The main appeal for me is the fact that it's yet another new competitor in the space. They have definitely been proving themselves, and this efficiency bump is a big deal, right? And to me, it's kind of making it clear that if you are interested in purchasing a Scrypt ASIC, your efficiency, you ideally do not want it to be any worse than this, right? Previously, we were saying essentially you don't want it to be worse than the Alphapex, the DG1 essentially. I guess even now that would be the cutoff, right? Because chances are that if things do repeat, we do go through a bear market after we peak, that it's going to be a game of efficiency, especially with how much the hash rate has increased, right? It has gone up pretty dramatically. We're on pace to hit a 3x here pretty soon, right? We're in the 1 petahash range. Probably in the next coming months, by summertime, I would be surprised if we're not averaging 3. We've spiked up to 4. Again, this thing spikes. You want to go by the median. We'll see. Probably here in the next few weeks, actually, wouldn't be surprised at that point. So, again, the key thing here is low electric rate and efficiency. Those things are going to keep you surviving throughout the bear market. So realistically, there's a good chance that L7s and below will not be profitable for a good amount of time, right? And at that point, they may not even be like break even or better throughout the worst parts of the bear market. So again, ideally, if you're considering purchasing anything, you want to be as efficient as possible. That way you can mine for that extended period of time, because things do get rocky, right? So we'll see if things repeat. Again, we don't know. None of that stuff is guaranteed, but that's definitely the way I view it, right? I'm looking for longevity here. And for me, like we've been saying, efficiency is longevity, right? And that's the name of the game with ASICs. That's how you make the most out of them, is by being able to mine for a longer period of time, right? And efficiency is what kind of gets you there. I know when Doge was pumping, a lot of people were talking about those less efficient ones, the IB Link one that had that horrible efficiency, or the DG Max and all those, and we saw how quickly those kind of fell off the map as far as profitability goes, right? Let's actually take a good look at them right now so we can see what we're talking about. So the DG Max at a 10-cent kilowatt hour, it actually is profitable right now. It's making about 10 cents a day, okay? Or actually just went down, right? So again, to me, the key is you want to be like DG1 and above, right? If you have an L7, it's still going to be profitable, especially right now because Doge is at its price where it's at. We're hoping it's going to pump sometime during this market. Hopefully, it steadily increase, and they're going to be profitable throughout this bull run for sure, right? Realistically, if I had one, I would 100% be looking at dumping it sometime throughout this run, though, right? Because realistically, beyond this, because of the amount of efficient hardware that's coming out, again, it's not just one manufacturer, it's every manufacturer that's coming out, right? And this is just what's currently here now. And this is the other big part of the news. And again, shout out to Greater Good. And this was IceRiver debuting that they are going to be releasing their own Scrypt ASIC sometime in Q3 2025, as well as a Bitcoin ASIC in Q4 2025. Okay, so big. This is pretty interesting. We don't really have any specs yet. That's going to be what's most interesting. Obviously, it's hard to say what to expect here. I would expect it to be in line with all the others. Will it be in line? Will it be slightly better? Will it be significantly better? We're going to have to wait and see, right? But things are lining up for definitely some more excitement with Scrypt ASICs sometime towards the end of this year. Will that be the peak? This is the hard thing to consider, is that typically what is Q3, Q4? The peak of the cycle, right? So are we going to see like those 25K L7s from last cycle kind of repeat with these new models coming out potentially? So would I be looking at getting them at that point? At those price points, no, right? But we're going to have to see what the prices are, where they land, the size of these things, where the efficiency lands, right? Realistically, that's going to be my deciding factor, because realistically, sometime throughout this bull market, I do plan on getting some Scrypt ASICs. Okay, and it's going to be more of a profit-taking thing. Once there's profits to be had, maybe we'll go there, just depending on price. If not, we're going to have to wait through the bear market when prices do retrace quite a bit, but that is the current plan, but that is what we are looking for. But again, to me, the name of the game, everything screams it. You want to be at this range of efficiency or better. Again, at worst, I would say the Alphapex units, realistically, we have so many now that are in this efficiency range, and we know that there's more coming, right? And there's going to be a lot more interest, especially as Doge does hit these price points. It did already hit like damn near 50 cents not too long ago, but we do fully expect to go up in that range again, and we know that's what's going to happen. They're going to just continue to print these things, right? And we know that there's institutional interest. We know that because of the amount of hydro units that are coming out, and obviously they're selling those things, and who do those go to? Industrial miners, right? So just keep all those things in mind. But again, as far as what I'm looking at for purchasing anything for me myself, it's definitely Scrypt, Bitcoin, ETH hash, right? Those are definitely the three. Realistically, the most prominent one is still Scrypt, even with this hash rate going through the roof. Again, the name of the game is going to be efficiency to get you through potentially at least some of the rough points in the bear market. We'll see how things play out, but it's definitely exciting times. Competition is definitely heating up between all these manufacturers, right? It's kind of crazy to see. The big standout for me, though, and like the hard part with these manufacturers also announcing these things so far ahead of time, in my opinion, they're putting a huge target on their back right now, right? The reason I'm saying that is that we've been kind of speculating that it's extremely likely that Bitmain has something better up their sleeve, just because with the initial announcement of the specs of the L9, they were a little bit underwhelming and kind of seemed weird that these no-name manufacturers are also able to reach their efficiency. Seems extremely odd. So the fact that now that those guys are releasing Q3, Q4, if Bitmain did have something up their sleeve, that's when they're going to announce it, right? Or that's when they're going to release it. They're probably going to release it sooner. Don't be surprised to see an announcement here in the next few months for pre-orders for Q3, Q4 for another Scrypt ASIC if it happens. Will it happen? Won't it happen? We know that Bitmain typically likes to be the best, right? Although, I mean, the key thing to consider here is that it's not the biggest increase. Like, yes, Alphapex is now the king. They definitely do have the efficiency crown, but is it going to be enough for them to release something, or will it be something more modest? Maybe a L9 Plus, a L9 Pro, whatever, L9 Plus Pro, up, down, left, right, whatever they want to do, where it's only a 10, 15, 20% increase, right? Which we've seen them do over and over, right? We've seen them with the pros and the pluses, et cetera, where it is a more modest between 10 to 20% efficiency gain just for them to regain that crown, right? It is possible. But then Alphapex may play that game too with the DG2 Plus, et cetera, but all these things to factor in is just consider these things, right? So obviously if it's not released until Q3, Q4, would not recommend pre-ordering one as of now. You want to take advantage now, especially want to take advantage of these much lower prices, because these prices sometime between now and the next few months, could be few weeks, could be few days, right? As of right now, we know that there's a big cloud of tariffs hanging over us, and that's what's kind of suppressing all of these prices. We have seen things want to pump, but then we get a few days of nothing, and then like today we got news on the tariffs. And surprisingly, things didn't go that bad. I think it seems like those things are getting priced in, but hopefully by April 2nd, we will have a resolution to that. Hopefully getting rate cuts in June. A lot of prominent people are all expecting that now, so a lot of things could be turning around sooner than later. So just things to consider, right? Because as Doge's price goes up, the prices of these guys are going to go up, and the prices of these others yet to come are also likely to go up, right? So a lot of things to consider. Realistically, if you're interested right now, is definitely not a bad time, especially considering the prices just, what, a few months ago were like 14, 15K for these things, right? Essentially in half right now. So things to consider, guys. But let me know what you guys think. How do you guys feel about this DG2? Are you guys bullish on it? Do you guys see it as a big deal or not as big of a deal? Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I am out.